So the first company I started, I did an accelerator in New York, and that was absolutely key to understand how disconnected you are from the ecosystem if you're not in the ecosystem living. So the first company failed. We spent a lot of money. I ended up in a lot of debt precisely because of the cost of living in New York and assuming that we were going to raise money and we didn't.
So tell me about you raising capital, because that's obviously an interesting question for most startups. And most of our audience are like entrepreneurs or startups. So in that path, when you first got funded, that was in Costa Rica, and then you flew into New York. How was that? Was it like a daunting experience? Where you like, it's a one-shot kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
It was a little different than that because, so the first company I started, I did an accelerator in New York, and that was absolutely key to understand how disconnected you are from the ecosystem if you're not in the ecosystem living. So the first company failed. We spent a lot of money. I ended up in a lot of debt precisely because of the cost of living in New York and assuming that we were going to raise money and we didn't. But even the second time around, we realized that it was absolutely key to have a presence in the US, because otherwise you're not really part of the club. You're not really part of the ecosystem. Right. Originally, we didn't intend to sell to startups. Like, we could have sold to anybody, not necessarily startups, but even more now that we do sell to startups, we sort of need to have a foot there. Even now that I'm in Costa Rica, like I feel more disconnected from the ecosystem. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what people are really talking about. There's no hallway chat or water cooler chat about whatever startup is cool. You're not seeing the subway signs and what startup is suddenly affording some subway advertising. And in the end, that makes you disconnected from the ecosystem. So that's why we always felt that was important. So we raised some money from a couple of grants. Startup Chile was one. There was a grant here in Costa Rica. And then our move to New York was through an accelerator as well. I think that if you're a foreign to the ecosystem, an accelerator is perfect for that bridge, because it gives you, it sort of fast tracks your first contacts, your first network, your first CEO contact. Like, if you just raise money and then just land in New York on your own as a company, you're probably going to be lost for a while, especially as a first-time founder. But an accelerator sort of helps bridge that a little bit.
Right, and then you kind of talk about a pivoting point in your startup as well in one of the videos, that the accelerator actually taught you an issue that was there in your marketing strategy, and that helped you kind of grow. So like, I think, like, from what you're saying, what it seems like, it's not really about the money. It's about the advice. It's about the strategic input, as well as the connections that you can draw from accelerators to get you there. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah. The connections are, again, you don't need them, but if you don't have them, and especially if you're coming from abroad or even from outside the city, they help out a lot. So I had already been through an accelerator the first time around, and I still did another accelerator again, because the first time around I spent most of the time in the accelerator, Dream It, developing the product, so finishing the product so that we could launch it. And that was a big mistake, because I couldn't do as much networking as I wanted to. I couldn't hang out with the other CEOs as much as I wanted to. I didn't have time to, leverage the partner's LinkedIn to meet people as much as I wanted to. So this time around, my feeling was, well, we failed at that this time. So what we're doing different is we're coming in with a finished product. I am going to disconnect myself from the product development during this period, and I'm going to spend most of my time networking and fundraising. We failed at fundraising because the product was too early, but the context we built during that time, and then we've leveraged those contacts as we move forward.